Now I'm going to go through my CSS line by line and start to change things. For instance, on screen I was using a Verdana or an Arial font. Those are good sans serif font faces. But in print, serif fonts tend to look better. So I will use the Times font when printed. Now for background color, since I'm going to assume that most people will be printing out on a black and white printer, or even if they're using a color printer, it's kind of nice to use black and white for a lot of stuff since it tends to be cheaper for the visitor. My background color, instead of using a dark, I'll use white. And for my foreground color, instead of using gray, I'll use black. There we go. Now I just made a few changes. I've changed my font family, and I've changed a background color and a foreground color. I want to get rid of that italics too. Instead of font style italic, I'm going to change this to font style normal. There we go. Now my Times font is no longer in italics. So now I have a slightly different print version versus my screen version. I'm going to make a few more changes. So those are changes to the body of my page, and I'm pretty satisfied with those. Now my headline 1. Right now my headline 1 is centered, which I'm quite fine with. But instead of my headline 1 being white text, I'm going to make it black. And everything else I'm pretty satisfied with. The bottom border. Right now it has a dark blue border, but I think I will go ahead and make that black as well. Okay. Now for this is where I was doing some child selectors and adjacent selectors that were inside of my headline. I'm going to make all of those black too. This will take away the various color changes that I had in my headline. I reload. I'm going to do another print preview. There we go. So now my headline is easily visible across. My outer wrapper is 100% wide, and I'm fine with that. Now my central column doesn't really need to have a set width. So I'm going to delete my central column width and the margin. Now my central column background color, I'm going to change that to white. And I'm not sure if I want or like the border or not, but I think I'll keep it on there, but I will make it a very light shade of gray. So instead of the dark green, which is what that is, RGB, instead of it being a very dark green, I'll make it a very light gray, CCC. The padding is the same. Let's see how that's looking so far. There we go, lighter gray. Now for other changes, I'm going to get rid of the width of my terms and definitions and the margins. Colors I'll make all black. Background color can be white. Padding is fine. For my terms, I'm going to leave those as bold. Margin top is fine. The first letter is currently red. That's really not necessary, so I'll make that black so it matches with everything else. Actually, I could take this entire rule out. My definitions are black at a slightly smaller font. That's fine. My examples, they're in a Courier New font, which I want to keep. Right now they're a dark red, which, if it's black and white, that's not going to show up so well. So instead of that, I'll make that black. Font style normal, margin top 5. That part's pretty good. I think I'm going to put a thin border. I do want to emphasize the example. I want it to stand out a little bit, so I'm going to put a thin border. And there's already some padding top, but I would like that padding to be on all four sides, so I'm going to change padding top just to the word padding. 5 pixels, top, right, bottom, and left, all four sides. I'll go ahead and press save. Let's see how things are looking now. There we go. So this is the way my page is looking. So when somebody prints this page, they're not going to have a very colorful result. They're going to have a basic black and white version of my web page. Now there's lots of different things you can do on a page as well. For instance, I mentioned that on the CNN they should probably be hiding some things like advertisements and navigation menus and things like that. So let's try this. What if I have something on my web page that I don't want to show up when somebody prints it? Okay. For instance, what if I had a picture on my web page? Okay, I went to Flickr and I found a picture. I just typed in CSS and I found a picture with CSS as the title. Has nothing to do with style sheets though. I'm going to go to my web page for a moment, and within my paragraph I'll embed that image. Do I remember what I called it? Of course not. css.jpg. Now I'm going to do an inline style to float it to the right. And in fact, this is what, no, I'll do that. Float to the right, and I'm also going to give it an ID. There. So now I have an image. In fact, while I'm here, I'm also going to set its size, width, about 250 pixels. Okay, so I've got that picture saved. So if I jump back over here and refresh, I now have a picture. So there's CSS and I've got the picture on there. And I think that looks great for the web page. But if somebody prints that out, I don't want that picture to show up. Now if they were to print right now, all my other changes would apply, but of course that picture would be incorporated in there. So what I'll do is on my print version CSS, picture 1, which is the ID I created for that picture, is going to be display none. So on this print version, that picture will not display. Refresh, File, Print Preview. Picture's gone. Okay. So using that particular technique of telling some things to not display, you could hide navigation menus, you could hide advertisements, you could hide large banners, you could hide graphics, things that you don't think are going to add to the usability of a web page when it's printed. And that's really the question you constantly need to ask yourself. What elements do I put on my page add to its usability? Does it make it easier to read and easier to understand? The same questions need to be asked when you print, and sometimes you get different answers. So always keep that in mind.